I agree with you about the Constitution, but are you concerned about what you're seeing taking place in our schools, in our society, in our media generally?
Yes, Mark, and I've been concerned about it for many years. I do think the consoling thought is that the Constitution has withstood such challenges before. In the late 19th century, a huge surge of immigration brought all kinds of ideologies into the United States: anarchism, communism, socialism. And we worried then, with good reason, that these posed a threat to the Constitution and to American values.
Mr. Mark Levin, we have gotten to learn so much from him and enjoy his ability to share with us his thoughts and his commentators. Well, let's listen to this interview with great historian Mr. Neil Ferguson as they discuss the future of the Western civilization. Let's watch it together and we'll discuss it afterwards. Kindly subscribe to our channel so a little bit of light will push away a lot of darkness.
We're here with another gentleman who I greatly admire, great historian and scholar and author, senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, and he's a columnist with the Free Press. That's Neil Ferguson. Neil, I'm very concerned about the nature of things in the West, and especially the United States. I mean, Britain and France, don't get me wrong, Australia, Canada, I see it all, we all see it all, but here in the United States, if the Marxist, Islamist, neo-fascist ideologies really become formidable, and I think they're becoming formidable, then there's really no other place on the face of the earth to push back. What is your attitude? What do you see?
The United States is the key to the future survival of Western civilization. That is why I became an American citizen, Mark, because it all hinges on the United States. And the United States has one big advantage, which is it has an operating system, the Constitution, that is above all a guarantee of liberty. And as long as we don't lose sight of that, then all the bad ideologies that exist and have existed for many years cannot ultimately challenge our liberty.
But what about the fact that these movements, and we even see within the Democrat Party, I would argue, attempt to destroy the barriers that are actually in the Constitution, separation of powers, who gets to do what, open borders to basically change the citizenry. I mean, even Aristotle said that's revolution by immigration, that changes a society and a culture. The failure of assimilation. In other words, we see these various areas of the culture that have been or are being devoured from within. And even, at least a half a dozen of the framers of the Constitution said, look, if the people lose their virtue, we can write whatever we want. This isn't gonna hold up. So I agree with you about the Constitution. But are you concerned about what you're seeing taking place in our schools, in our society, in our media generally?
Yes, Mark, and I've been concerned about it for many years. I do think the consoling thought is that the Constitution has withstood such challenges before. In the late 19th century, a huge surge of immigration brought all kinds of ideologies into the United States: anarchism, communism, socialism. And we worried then, with good reason, that these posed a threat to the Constitution and to American values. It turned out that the United States was very good at absorbing all kinds of foreign elements and creating Americans, whether people came from Eastern Europe or whether they came from all kinds of different parts of the world. The success of the American experiment in the 20th century was that it somehow was able to make them all Americans. Now we face a similar challenge. It's a bigger challenge because the foreign-born share of the population is even larger now than it was in the late 19th century. We had, 2.3 million net migration annually under the Biden-Harris administration. This is an unprecedented challenge. And as you mentioned, Mark, there is a substantial Muslim proportion of that influx, which is new. That was not something that was a feature of the late 19th or early 20th century. What is particularly concerning to me, Mark, is that this has coincided with the spread through our educational system of a radical relativist ideology that is profoundly hostile to the United States, that wants to reframe American history as if it is primarily a history of white supremacy, of enslavement, and so forth. People forget when they are indoctrinated in this way that the least original aspect of American history was that there was slavery in some of the southern states. Now, there was slavery everywhere. Slavery was a feature of just about every imperial order. The unique thing about the United States was the creation of a constitution which prioritized liberty above all else. That was new, and we must never lose sight of the power of that innovation. We are approaching 250 years of success as a republic. Not many republics have lasted that long. In fact, virtually none. But as Franklin said, a republic if you can keep it. What encourages me, Mark, is that we are worrying, that you are worrying, that you are worried is part of how we keep our liberty. Realizing that these ideologies, you've mentioned them, but I'll say it again, Islamism, communism, neo-fascism, these ideologies are fundamentally hostile to the core American value of liberty. But we're a tolerant people. We allow free speech. The First Amendment says the government can't stop you saying crazy stuff. That's a distinctive feature of our system, and we therefore have to defend the right of people to say things that we find odious. That's the nature of freedom. So I'm not a pessimist because we've withstood these challenges before. You know, I was just reading a great new biography of Bill Buckley, and it reminded me that in the 1930s, anti-Semitism, isolationism, communism, all these bad ideas were flourishing in parts of the United States, were popular in parts of the United States. But they vanished or were driven to the margins in the period of World War II and during the Cold War years. American conservatism got rid of its toxic anti-Semitism, which had been there in the 30s. It got rid of its kind of defeatist isolationism. So we know how to do this as long as we remain true to the core foundational principles of our republic. The toxic ideologies of the past can't win.
This is the gift that God has given us. You know, we're getting real close. I believe it's next year is going to be the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. That was a gift that God gave the world. God gave us this world, the United States of America, 250 years ago, because the world needed it. The world needed a reset, a reboot. The world needed a country that will become the land of the free. And we say the word God bless America. And God bless America is on our currency for a reason. Because the founding fathers of the United States of America was to be able to create a country that will be different than the world has seen until now. That will be different to what has been seen in the Middle East, in Asia, in Europe, South Africa, etc. They had a whole new horizon. They had a whole new idea of the phoenix rising from the ashes. Millions and millions of people have been dying by the sword, going back to the 5th, 6th, 7th century. War after war after war after war. And humanity was done, was fed up with it. When Columbus set out sail, it wasn't by his own intuition to know where to go. Like King David writes in Psalm 37, that God decides man's footsteps. God directed Columbus to make it over the Atlantic and to discover what we have today. What we have today, we cannot take for granted. We cannot allow to be apathetic and complacent. We need to be diligent. We need to be an activist to protect what our founding fathers set out to do. So when we listen to Professor Neil Ferguson, and he sounds pessimistic, and as Mark Levin introduced him, for a reason for us Americans who have enjoyed I was born in 1961. My father was born in 1927. He was born in America, in Rhode Island. I was born here in New York. I am 64 years old, and I look back at my 64 years and I said, wow, I had a beautiful run. When I grew up, we didn't have to have guards in front of our synagogue. We didn't fear for our lives. We weren't worried about planes running into buildings. We had a very good run. Only for me personally to find in 2019, in April 27, to have survived a mass shooting at our synagogue. April 27, 2019, the last day of Passover, in the synagogue that my wife and I built in Poway, California, which is a northern town of north of San Diego, when on a Saturday morning, the last day of Passover, a white supremacist who was influenced by the internet came with an AR-15, a high-powered rifle. I was in the lobby talking with Mrs. Lori Lynn Gilbert Kay when he came in shooting, shot her on the spot right in front of my own eyes. Cold blood in daylight. Just shot and killed her for no reason, only because she was Jewish and she came to a synagogue. And then he lifted AR-15 to assassinate me and to kill me. I had children who were playing behind me. My natural reflex was to run and bring the children to safety, which I did. He got off 4 rounds trying to kill me. 2 fingers were hit by 2 bullets, but the rest of me survived. I was able to get all the children to safety. Thank God some very brave men from the congregation chased him out, and he eventually surrendered. And I have not been the same person since. When you survive a near-death experience, when you survive a mass shooting, you get to realize how every day is a gift, every day is a bonus round. And I wonder what happened to the soul of America. What happened to the America, the land of the free, that we grew up in? What happened from 1960 to 2019? So we are living in a world that is changing, but we don't have to allow it to change for the worse. God has given us so many gifts of our generation, more than we could ever imagine, even handle. Think of the advances that we have been witnessing in the medical field, in technology, in travel, in communication, in food production, in recycling, the desolation of water, taking ocean water, turning it into drinkable water, just the marvels that we are continuously to uncover. And now we're reaching a new frontier of AI. So God is giving us so much. We're living, which could be the best of times. And yet we seem to are seeing the worst of times. So that dichotomy, that paradox can be broken. And that is by us going back to the basics, going back to our faith in God Almighty, renewing our commitment to God in heaven, and bringing God back into our homes, bringing God back into your workplace, bringing God back into the schools. Let God be part of your conversation. You know, in the Jewish world that I grew up in, I was taught that as a very little child, whenever someone asks you, how are you? Your answer is, thank God. How was your day? Thank God. What's your plans? Well, please God, I'm going to be flying back home in a couple days. Include God in your vernacular. Include God in your life. When you include God in your life, then God will be present in your life. At the end of the day, God gives life and takes life. God blesses us. And the more times you mention God's name, the more you create a channel of blessing for you. So get into the practice of saying, thank God, please God, God willing. You include God in your life, then God will include you in his life. God bless you. God loves you.